Hello and welcome to Moments with Merritt. I'm Superintendent of Schools, Monica Merritt, and we're pleased to have you join us for this opportunity to learn more about the district. P-CCS has continued our phased-in process to return all Safe Start students to in-person learning when we welcome back our elementary, middle, and high school students to greater opportunities for in-person learning. Kindergarten through fifth grade students return to 5 days per week in-person learning. On the same day, middle school students began 4 days per week in-person learning, with Wednesdays remaining virtual live instruction. High school students began a 2-day per week half-day hybrid model for in-person classes, with Wednesdays being fully remote. To look at the return plans, I brought together the directors at the elementary, middle, and high school levels, Maureen Molloy, Anthony Ruela, and Hal Heard. Thank you each for joining us today.
Thank you, Superintendent Merritt. It is great to be here.
Wonderful to be here.
Thank you for this opportunity to be here to speak with you.
After the challenges of the past year, you all must be so excited to see more students returning to in-person classes. Can you share what this return means to each of you?
So I would say having our Safe Start students back in school full-time means that we are moving forward in the work we are committed to, which is educating the whole child. Having students back with their peers in person and engaging and learning in the classroom will provide students with the socialization that has been limited during this pandemic. Our elementary teachers and principals have been very committed to maintaining relationships with all students during the pandemic, but having children in person will certainly add to the opportunities for connection and support. We are so excited and have worked so hard to be ready for our students. It was wonderful to see the twinkling eyes behind the masks today as students came together in person with their whole Safe Start class for the first time this year.
Maureen, it was so exciting. I agree with you. There was the excitement in the air from both students and staff was just palpable, and just really appreciate all the work that went from you and the team to make today a reality. Mr. Ruela, how about you?
We are in the business of educating students, and we want our students in front of us. And our teachers and administrators get the energy from the students, and the students get the energy from each other. And it's so exciting just to see that in play on a daily basis. And while it was great over the past couple of weeks, having our middle school students back in hybrid instruction full day, there's just a different buzz when you have an entire school of 6th through 8th graders together. It's something that continues to drive us and is an energy that I just know all of the buildings, students, staff, cafeteria, custodial workers, paraprofessionals, families, we're just going to continue to draw upon that energy and close out this year the way that Plymouth-Canton only can.
Absolutely. Mr. Heard, do you have anything to add? I know your 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students, this was their first week back in 11 months.
It was great to see students during transitional times walking the path. We have not had an opportunity to see that in almost a year. To see that transition just to happen again, something that, kind of took for granted, to see it come back to life today was amazing. To pop into classrooms and hear some of the rich discussions that were taking place and see students and teachers really interact face to face was amazing. You can just hear some students walking down the hall as they, some recognized me still with even a mask on and still had some conversation about how they were pleased to be back in school and didn't want to lose that opportunity again. So they really are taking full advantage of being back, even though we're not fully at that point yet, but they're excited to where they're at this particular moment. And as we move forward to getting everyone back together.
That is so good to hear. I know the students are really excited and appreciate this opportunity to be back and are really doing their part to ensure they're following the mitigation strategies so that we can keep this in-person process going. Now, the district began bringing students back in person at the elementary level, actually beginning in October before we had a planned pause, returned again in January. What has the district been doing to allow more students to come back face-to-face?
Well, since October, when we first started back in hybrid and have continued to really preparing the school environment to create those spaces with 6-foot physical distance and planning our new routines and classroom practices, really supporting those mitigation strategies. Some of the things like playground zones and keeping classes together with their groups, using technology in new ways, and really just working out how lunch works and how classroom learning will work, and just coming together in a collaborative conversations around how to best make the best environment for students as they returned. And that really has been the focus of our work over the last several months.
We always talk about it taking a village, and the village really came together on behalf of our kids, and it's a great thing to see. Anything else to add?
Speaking from the middle level, really even just moving from hybrid model to full in-person learning, and building administrators and counselors worked incredibly hard to lower class size, reconfigure classrooms with respect to furniture, partnering with their teachers to see how they can maintain that classroom structure to support physical distancing and ensure physical distancing to maintain that 3-foot distance in classrooms, as well as reorganizing their lunch periods to ensure 6 feet of physical distancing in the cafeteria. Custodians, cafeteria staff, administrators, teachers have worked together and revised their building practices to support and make sure that our mitigation structures are in place so that we can return all students safely.
Let's spend some time now talking through each of the plans at various levels. Ms. Molloy, can you start with sharing a little bit more details about the elementary plan and how that has been developed?
Our Safe Start students returned to school in person this week and really worked together as their classroom family for the first time this year. Our Safe Start students have been in school since October with just half the class at a time. So they've had a chance to practice routines and see what the school looks like right now. In the classroom, students sit at their desks apart from one another, all with a minimum of 3 feet between desks. Our students during this return to learn time in person will primarily be at their seats, but teachers will really do their best to find creative ways to incorporate time outdoors and movement between active and quiet learning experiences. Students will also have lunch and recess, but this will look different, and some students will be eating in spaces other than the cafeteria so that we can ensure that there is 6 feet of space between students while they're eating. Our playgrounds have been organized in zones so that students can rotate in specified areas of the playground while staying with their class, and we call that their cohort. We also will continue with Readers and Writers Workshop and are moving forward with our new math resource as well. Our teachers have incorporated regular lessons to support social and emotional development, and this will continue throughout the year as well. Our students will also continue to receive art, music, media, and physical education classes, and teachers have the flexibility to take students outdoors for breaks throughout the day, as these are identified in building plans. We're just moving forward and making sure that we're really paying attention to what our students need. As we do this throughout the day, we'll make adjustments, just like good teachers have always done.
That's right. As we've always said, that flexibility and adaptability are the words of the year, and everybody's doing such a fine job. Mr. Ruela, can you tell us more details about the middle school plan now that they've started their return to 4 days per week, and really talk more about that Wednesday and the virtual live instruction that takes place on that day?
A way to conceptualize it is like, as things change, they also kind of stay the same. Students and staff have been back in a hybrid model, so students have been attending live instruction for all of their class periods 2 days a week and have had remote live instruction on Wednesdays. So as we discontinued the hybrid model, returned all students to Safe Start, we're still maintaining that block schedule. So students do attend their first hour, second hour, and third hour on Mondays and Thursdays, third hour, fourth hour, and fifth hour on Tuesdays and Fridays in a block schedule, which really parallels the schedule that students have been engaged in all year long as they moved from complete remote to a hybrid to now an in-person 4 days a week with remote Wednesdays. And we've really been purposeful to have that consistency as best we can, right? In a year that pretty much has had a lot of changes for students, right? We're really trying to work with as much consistency as possible. One of the reasons why we're maintaining the remote Wednesdays, it's an opportunity for students to see all their teachers on the same day and have that midpoint check-in. Because sometimes, you have a couple days off for a student and a middle school student. That Wednesday where they see all of their classes is really a good check-in to kind of ground the students and provide an opportunity for teachers just to make sure that their entire class is on the same page. As much as things have changed, they've also remained elements of similarities throughout the year.
Sounds like a good plan to provide that consistency in the middle of so many transitions. So we appreciate that. Mr. Heard, the plan for high school return has been the most challenging. What is planned for the hybrid half-day model, and why is this hybrid approach needed?
School looks different from when they left last March, from the number of classes per day to the way students transition in the hallways. We have several mitigation strategies and protocols in place to help everyone remain safe. The hybrid approach gives students and staff an opportunity to become familiar with the protocols and become reacclimated to school. This approach also alleviates the issues surrounding lunch, as we're bringing back close to 5,000 students. So physical distancing at 6 feet at lunch is a barrier, but our building principals and learning design teams are putting forward their best thinking and are hard at work looking at every alternative to overcoming that barrier. With the weather breaking, this opened up some more opportunities for us as it surrounds the barrier of lunch.
We appreciate all the work that is going into that. It definitely is a very complex situation, and you're working together through that very nicely. I know that we have to manage people's expectations throughout, and there are many families who would like to have had a quicker return to in-person learning. What would you say to those families?
I believe the best instructional model for our students is in person. So we definitely want our students all back, and we want to make sure we do it in a safe way that everyone's comfortable. And when we talk about being comfortable, we're talking about students who've been away from the classroom almost a year to our staff. We're going to make sure that everybody's comfortable and able to go forward and do it in a way that we keep everyone safe. I think once we kind of get those protocols and procedures down, I think then we can start moving a little bit faster and faster to our approach to returning everyone face-to-face at full time.
You're listening to Moments with Merritt, and I'm Superintendent of Schools, Monica Merritt. I'm talking with the directors at our elementary, middle, and high school levels, Maureen Molloy, Anthony Ruela, and Hal Heard. We're talking about the district returning students to greater in-person learning. This past year has been challenging for our students and teachers. How have you seen students and teachers rise to the occasion?
I have definitely seen and heard from elementary principals how much teachers and students have had to learn around technology, around self-management, around delayed gratification. They have had to work to understand how to do things differently and make change and find ways to stay connected that is unfamiliar to them. And our teachers have worked to learn about supporting the social emotional needs of our students and learn about helping to support students in new ways. And our students continue to find new ways to communicate and stay connected with their friends and their families. And in the schools, our children are doing an amazing job adjusting to school looking different and having to learn new routines and ways of learning. So there are a lot of new first-time learning for everyone, and they're doing a great job with it.
I think about the flexibility that our staff and students and families have demonstrated. I think about the persistence in terms of whether it's students with their academics or teachers learning new platforms or parents in terms of supporting their teachers and students and making sure that everyone is connected. That commitment to education, the commitment to each other and connectedness and providing support for each other. That has been something that from all the staff members to families to students who reach out in so many different ways to not only their teachers, but also to each other. And there's just so many examples of that it really makes me feel good. And it's hard to say, hey, I feel good in the midst of a global pandemic and all of the challenges that we've had. But to see the way that our community has worked to rise above and to support each other is very uplifting.
I think we definitely can take a moment to celebrate that, because that is something that really does make all of our hearts just fill with joy to know that in the midst of these challenges, our community has come together. When we think about the challenges that we've heard, not just across the country, but about the world that our students are facing mentally and emotionally during the COVID-19 pandemic, what has the district done to meet the needs of our students?
At the elementary level, we've been very intentional around teaching strategies and helping students build their own competency around social emotional strategies. Our teachers are helping students recognize and identify feelings and helping the students learn how to take the perspective of others and finding new ways to stay connected and advocate for themselves and one another, actually. And so it's that sense of community and looking at that in a different way and knowing that we have to reach out to our families and our students and one another in different ways. We have been very, very intentional about that.
And as for the high school level, we've implemented a social emotional learning segment or a way to start off our Wednesdays. We have lessons that we give out to all of our teachers, and they take the first 20 minutes before class starts and have some conversations with their individual classes and students around whatever that lesson may be. Whether it may be coping strategies, having conversations about, okay, what does it look like? How do you cope just in the normal times or what we thought were normal times? And how are you dealing with things that are going on now in the midst of this pandemic? So those are some of the intentional things that we've done at the high school level for students and as well as staff, because staff are able to even review these lessons and apply them to their own lives.
At the middle school level, whether it's SEL lessons that the teachers are doing with their advisory classes or groups that counselors are running, both when we were in remote instruction and they were running virtual groups to now that they're back in person, having lunch bunches and things like that, where they're able to bring students together in small groups and rebuild connections that might have been a little bit strained due to the extreme distancing we were doing for a while there. Those are just a few add-on things at the middle, but what Ms. Molloy and Mr. Heard spoke about is true at the middle school as well.
It is so important, and I appreciate hearing all the work that has been done to support our students in their individual needs. When we think about schools and the research and data and science around transmission of COVID-19, schools are low transmission sites, and it's really encouraged that we return students to greater in-person learning. How will the district handle COVID-19 mitigation strategies as more students are returning to the buildings?
With the elementary, we've been following mitigation practices since October, and our teachers and principals and staff and students, they've had the opportunity to practice. We've adjusted routines and created new ways of doing things so that we can keep physical distance. We're washing and sanitizing our hands all the time, keeping our groups cohorted together, and disinfecting the environment throughout the day. So we're going to just continue to do that. Our distancing has, of course, shifted as we've come back with all of our Safe Start students in person full days, but it's still a priority. And so we are committed to the greatest distance possible between students when they're engaged in activities. We are spending as much time outdoors as we can because we know that not only is movement important, but just the fresh air and the spacing of students is greater outdoors. And so we just continue to take the science and take what we have been provided and making sure that we're incorporating that throughout our day.
That's wonderful. We really do know that adherence to these mitigation strategies work. And I'm so proud, once again, of our students because they are really taking it upon themselves to be in compliance with these strategies. They're working together as a school community to just ensure that we can keep these opportunities for in-person learning till the remainder of the school year. Mr. Heard, we're approaching the end of the school year. Last year, our high school students and staff had to be very creative with end-of-the-year rituals like graduation. How will we approach these milestone events this school year?
Well, the committees that oversee events such as graduation, prom, and honors night have begun the work of planning for these events. These committees have some preliminary ideas and plans for how they will help celebrate the class of 2021. The committees are making plans for how these events will be able to function with or without Department of Health orders that could be in place, which makes it a little tricky at this time as we fully don't know what it will look like in a few months. Our graduation committee, for example, will soon send out a communication detailing the plans for graduation, such as location, times, how to purchase a cap and gown, and ordering invitations and things that happen during this time of year. Our prom and honors committee, are working hard to ensure students in the class of 2021 have a memorable moment as they conclude their K-12 experience.
I appreciate just having that information out there. I know that our families recognize that it is important that we follow the guidelines as provided by the MDHHS for gatherings, but I think just knowing the save the dates and that all of this work is taking place is really encouraging to especially the senior families who want to make sure that their students have a memorable end of the school year. So I really want to thank you for that work there. As we bring closure today, what words do you have for families as they begin the process of returning students to greater in-person learning?
Thank you for entrusting your children to us and know that we are doing all that we can to maintain the health and safety in that type of environment for students and supporting their learning and development and social, emotional, and really the development of the whole child. And please continue to be our partner so that we can together make the best of this challenging time.
Thank you for trusting us, because there's nothing more that a parent can do than trust their children to our care. We really appreciate having the students with us, and we really appreciate the partnerships with our families.
Thank you for your patience. This has not been an easy experience on anyone, whether it's been from a parent's perspective or from a staff's perspective, but we appreciate your patience as we continue to work towards our ultimate goal of returning all of our students to full in-time, in-person learning. The second word would be for our teachers and staff, the whole piece and how they were able to create new things and stretch themselves within their classrooms, and our students, their perseverance, and even getting to this point and working through what they've had to work through this last year.
Thank you all for those wonderful words of guidance, encouragement, and great advice for our families moving forward. Our guests have been the directors of elementary, middle, and high school levels, Ms. Maureen Molloy, Mr. Anthony Ruela, and Mr. Hal Heard. Thank you each for joining us today.
Been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for the opportunity.
As an educator, I have watched teachers personally engage students in ways that increase achievement. I have watched students inspire each other as they become excited about learning. This type of engagement occurs best for most students when it is person to person. The power of in-person learning continues to be our driving goal as we created Safe Start plans to return students and staff to their classrooms. I also want to take a moment and thank our students, staff, and families for their patience during this past year. It's been extremely challenging, but together we've remained P-CCS strong. Thanks again for joining us today. I'm Monica Merritt, and you've been listening to Moments with Merritt on 88.1 The Park, representing the Plymouth-Canton Community Schools, where all students learn, prepare, and thrive.